Hello, and welcome to another episode of Make It at Home, a series of craft tutorials presented by the Manitoba Crafts Museum and Library. Today we will be making paper quilts as well as learning about the symbolism and geometry of quilt patterns. Quilts have been made for hundreds of years. They are most commonly used as bed coverings, so they are both functional and decorative. There are many different types of quilts, but the type of quilt you are probably most familiar with is the piece quilt. This type of quilt became really popular in North America in the 18th and 19th centuries. A piece quilt is made of multiple layers. The top layer is decorated with small pieces of fabric sewn together in a pattern. These patterns are usually geometric, meaning they are made up of basic shapes like squares, triangles, and circles. There are many unique quilt patterns, and some patterns have even been around for hundreds of years. Quilt patterns can be inspired by nature, religion, historic events, architecture, or even common household objects. We are going to look at 4 different quilt patterns that range in difficulty that you can try out for yourself. For this activity, you will need colored paper, scissors, a ruler, a pencil, and a glue stick. This first pattern is called the sugar bowl. This is the easiest pattern and only uses 2 colors. First, we need to cut out a base for the block we will be making. This block is 10 by 10 centimeters, so measure out a 10 by 10 centimeters square and cut it out. The base layer can be any kind of paper because it won't be seen. I'm using computer paper here. Once you have your base cut out, we will move on to making the pattern pieces. The sugar bowl pattern uses 2 different colors. This pattern has 8 pieces in total, 4 blue triangles and 4 yellow triangles. There is a link to the pattern in the description if you would like to reference it. Starting with one color, measure and draw out 2 5 by 5 centimeter squares and then cut them out. The sugar bowl pattern is named after a household object. Sugar and sugar bowls were very expensive a couple hundred years ago and were prized possessions. Right now we have 2 squares. To make the triangles, we are going to draw a line diagonally from opposite corners across the square. Cut along this line and there are your triangles. We're going to repeat the same process for the other color in the pattern. Cut out 2 5 by 5 centimeter squares, draw a diagonal line across the square, and then cut along the line to get your triangles. Now we are going to assemble the quilt block. Arrange the pieces on the base, alternating colors. Basically, you will be making 4 squares, but each square will have 1 blue triangle and 1 yellow triangle. Glue those pieces down and your quilt block is finished. The next pattern is called the friendship star. First off, we are going to measure and cut out a 9 by 9 centimeter square for the base. This pattern commemorates friendship. Early settlers mostly lived on farms and were busy farming most of the year. They didn't have many neighbors who lived close by, so they didn't have a ton of opportunities to socialize. So a couple times a year, they would meet up with their friends or family and work on quilts together. After the base is cut out, pick 2 different colors of paper for the pattern pieces. This pattern has 13 pieces total, 4 light green squares and 1 dark green square, and 4 light green triangles and 4 dark green triangles. We'll start by making the light green pattern pieces first. So measure out 6 3 by 3 centimeter squares. We're cutting out 6 squares because 2 will be used to make the triangles. Once all the squares are cut out, set 4 aside, and with the remaining 2 squares, cut them in half diagonally to create triangles. We're going to repeat the same process for the dark green pattern pieces, but instead of 6 squares, we will measure out 3 3 by 3 centimeter squares. Once all the squares are cut out, set 1 aside. With the remaining 2 squares, cut them in half diagonally to create triangles. Now we're ready to arrange the pieces. Place the 4 light green squares in each corner of the base, and then place the dark green square in the center of the base. After that, we're going to put the dark green triangles like so around the center square. Finally, We're going to fill in the remaining white spaces with the light green triangles. Glue down your pieces and your friendship star block is complete. The sawtooth pattern represents the cutting edge of a saw. This is the largest pattern out of the ones that we're making today. Measure and cut out a 12 by 12 centimeter square for the base. Saws are useful tools used to cut wood. Today they are electric, but even 50 to 60 years ago, wood had to be sawed by hand. So the triangles that run along the central square in this pattern represent the jagged teeth on a handsaw. The sawtooth pattern is a bit more complex. This pattern uses 3 different colors, and I'm using pink, orange, and yellow here. The sawtooth pattern has 17 pieces in total, 1 yellow square, 4 orange triangles, 4 orange squares, and 8 pink triangles. The first piece that we're going to cut out is the yellow square. So measure and cut out a 6 by 6 centimeter square. Moving on to the orange, measure out 2 4 by 4 centimeter squares and cut them out. After that, cut each square in half diagonally to create 4 triangles. Sticking with the orange, measure and cut out 4 3 by 3 centimeter squares. The final color we still need is pink. Measure out 4 3 by 3 centimeter squares and cut them out. Cut each square in half diagonally to make 8 triangles. Now we are ready to assemble the block. Place an orange square in each corner of the base. Along the edges of the base, put an orange triangle between the orange squares. The yellow square then goes in the middle. Fill in the remaining white spaces with the pink triangles. Glue the pattern pieces down and the sawtooth pattern is complete. The tumbling blocks pattern is the hardest one I will be showing you today because it's based on a hexagon shape instead of a square like the other patterns we looked at. So to start off, you're going to measure and cut out a 10 by 10.5 centimeter base. You'll need 3 different colors for this pattern, a dark color, a medium color, and a light color. It helps if they're all the same shade, so for example, all 3 colors are blue, but there is a dark blue, a medium blue, and a light blue. This pattern is an optical illusion, and the different shades of blue create an overall effect of depth and make the shapes look like 3-dimensional cubes. The shape that the tumbling blocks pattern is made up of is called a rhombus. It has 4 sides of the same length but no right angles. Because it has no right angles, it's a bit more difficult to draw. So to make it easier to cut out your pattern pieces, you can make a template like this one to trace. To make this template, you mark a dot on a piece of paper. This will be the center of your template. From the center mark, measure 2.5 centimeters both to the left and right of that mark. Then you will measure 1.5 centimeters from the center up and down and make a mark. Using a ruler, join those marks you just made and you'll have a rhombus. Cut it out and then you can use it to trace your pattern pieces. You can also download the quilt pattern linked in the description below to use as a template for your pattern pieces. So for the tumbling blocks patterns, you need 3 different colors. I'm using blue as the darkest shade, green as the medium shade, and light green as the lightest shade. So you're going to trace and cut out 5 rhombuses from each color of paper. Trace and cut 5 dark green rhombuses. Trace and cut 5 light green rhombuses. Now we get to start arranging the tumbling blocks. Starting in the bottom left corner, place a green piece. Beside it, put down a blue piece. but in the opposite orientation so that the tip of the blue piece is pointing to the left. Repeat this pattern by placing another green piece and then a blue piece along the bottom of the square. Put a light green piece on top of the blue and green pieces in the center of the bottom row. And now you can start to see a three-dimensional cube appear in the pattern. You're going to repeat the same pattern from the bottom row onto the next row. Notice that all the green pieces are pointing to the right and all the blue pieces are pointing to the left. Cap that row by putting down light green pieces on top of this second row. You'll notice that there are still some white spots showing. We're going to cut down the remaining pieces we have to fit into those spots. Starting with a light green, we're going to take one piece and cut it in half vertically and put those in the matching gaps. For the bottom row, take the last light green piece and cut it in half lengthwise. Place those pieces along the bottom of the square. After this step, I glued the pieces down just so they wouldn't move around so much. Now only the top edge has white spots showing. Take a blue piece and cut it in half vertically, and then cut it in half one more time. Place those pieces to the right of the light green pieces. You're going to repeat the same cuts with the green piece and then fill in those last white spots. Glue down the remaining pieces and the tumbling blocks pattern is complete. So there you have it, 4 different quilt patterns that you can make yourself out of paper. You can create multiple quilt blocks from one pattern to create a bigger overall pattern. You can experiment with different colors, or even if you're feeling adventurous, try it out with some fabric and thread. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.